Okay. Um, Dave, I'm just curious here. Back in our day, we were playing against the Soviets, and I'm sure 90% of the people that are involved in coaching today, particularly the players, don't know what the hell that was and why they were so good. And I wonder if you could elaborate on because you had to coach an amateur Canadian national team to compete against the Soviets, and nobody realized how good they were athletically, technically, and tactically. So it's a bit of a history lesson here because I often talk about Soviet hockey and use the word Soviets. And now Russia is Russia, and many of the former communist states have become their own countries. So, can you talk a bit about that, Aaron? How you got into it and the beginning of realizing that how what they were doing and that what we could do better.
Well, it was a long process. I learned a heck of a lot when I started to coach the. I was lucky. When I was coaching at the University of Saskatchewan. I got an opportunity to coach Canada's national junior team, and so I saw some things there that tip of the iceberg. And then when I went to the national team and we played 22 or 23 games against Russian teams every year. Our schedule would be about 60 games, and I would say 22 to 26 or 7, I guess, would be against Russian teams. Izvestia Cup, Spengler Cup always had Russian teams, and then our tours in Canada and all those kind of things. So I learned a heck of a lot. I guess, you know, it's funny when you coach at that level, people always said, why are you so defensive? And, you know,
we got some kickback, so somebody's turning off their speaker.
Okay, so anyway, well, I'll go. I think we're okay now. I just very quickly I learned one thing, and it's much easier to prevent a team from scoring than it is to score. Scoring is the hardest thing to do in the game. Defending is the easiest thing to do in the game if you have an attitude and you have some aptitude to try to do it. So, you know, I remember going to the Izvestia Cup and playing against the Russians. And I think for the first 8 or 9 minutes, we saw the puck. We never had the puck. Like they continually had the puck. And in those days, they would go back and build up and come back at you again. And you're trying to tell your guys to tighten your gaps. And they're saying, pardon me, you can't do it. They're coming too fast. There's too many people moving. So I learned one thing. If we were going to be competitive, we better be pretty good defensively. Yes, we worked on offense, but we had to work a lot on defense because we were going to be playing probably, I don't know, 65-45 without the puck percentage-wise. But we really knew one thing. We had to increase our skill offensively with the puck because one thing I did learn about playing against the Russians, if you can hold the puck and literally possessions, I wouldn't say slow it down, but yes, you do slow it down. You had a better chance because in the offensive zone, we were never in a rush to score unless it was a great opportunity. We'd hold the puck cycle because we wanted them to have to stop. If they stopped, we had a much better opportunity to, if they break out, to defend from a stop position versus going into the zone, taking a wide angle rush shot or whatever. They're getting a rebound and bang, they're gone. Somebody's got a breakaway. So you learn all those little adaptations, Wally. So, and I enjoyed that, but I do think that the Russians and the Soviets in those eras, they were very fit, tactically very good. They really understood what they were doing. That's the one thing that really impressed me about the Russians. They weren't bots. They understood clearly what they were being asked to do. They knew what they were achieving when they stretched you out. They knew when they knew their tactics well. They understood them well. And that's the one thing I always got most out of the Russians was, God, these guys really understand what they're doing because they played so well. They moved the puck. I mean, we talked about one-touch passing. That's what they did. They one-touch pass. They kept on the move. That's why they were so fast. And They were really hard to defend. But, I felt very fortunate at that time. And, Herb Brooks would probably tell you the same thing when he coached in, 79, 80, that Olympic year against the Russians. You learn more than you probably thought you would, but it's a great experience. And I always felt that Russian hockey at that time, we took a lot from them. And as I said earlier, that's changed now. The equation's gone back the other way, Wally.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
Is Ursinov still around?
Yeah, Ursinov is still around. He still does some consulting work with Moscow Dynamo in the KHL. Still very, he hasn't changed at all. He's still very intense, loves the game. He was a guy, everybody talks about Tikhonov. It was Ursinov who was, I think, more home. So you know what he's like. He could be really stern with the players, but he had a little Tarasov in him.
Somebody turn their speaker off.
Yeah, he was a great friend of Yohanni because he coached
Yeah.
TPS too in Turku there.
Yeah,
And then when I went to the Red Bulls, he was coming 1 week a month there.
Yeah, well, Tom, if you look at the game changing in Finland,
yeah,
it was the Russian coaches that went to coach in the Finnish Elite League. I mean, Ursinov, I remember talking to Saku Koivu, who played for him at TPS, and Saku said, like, we never trained with a Finnish coach 2 or 3 times a day, like, twice on the ice, in the weight room. And the one thing Ursinov did, and I think the Russian players would all say it, they all came to the realization they could do a lot more than they thought they could do. That's a player. A player, they were pushed hard and they started to realize they could do it. And it changed the game in Finland a great deal. And Ursinov's a great coach. He's an unbelievable guy, too. That's what I found. I found the Russian coaches terrifically interested in exchanging ideas. They're open,
Yeah.
They talk hockey.
Yeah, he's one of the nicer guys I've met along the way, I think.
Absolutely.
Dave, in terms of Russian coaches, I have to share this story. Playing with the national team, the Russians were in town, and the big bear Tarasov was running practice. I substitute taught when I played with the team, but when the Russians were in town, I didn't teach. I went and watched them practice.
Right.
And they were preparing for us, and he did a deliberate breakout drill. And I think it's sort of like the counter pinch, but it's more like a high winger tip to the center coming across. They were preparing for our North American aggressive pinch.
Yep.
And they spent time redirecting the puck from the winger on the boards high in front of the defenseman to the sprinting support player, the center iceman. So they created a 2-on-1 up high on a breakout.
Yep.
This is in the late
60s.
In the late 60s, 70s.
So,
my God, they're doing that stuff back then. And that was, I think, a game day practice that they were having. To play us that night. So, watching it, I realized, oh my God, look at what we're up against.
It's interesting. When I was in Yaroslavl, the year after I was there, I guess it was, they brought over a North American skills coach, a guy who coordinated the coaching staffs working with the kids. And when that happened, they were talking about it and they asked me for names and they were doing it. And I thought, my goodness, I never thought ever when I was coaching our national team that we would be instructing the Russians on skill development. But, we've done a lot, like in Canada and the US, there's a lot of great coaching going on. And I guess it says a lot about and I still think, Wally and Tom, I know you guys know this so much. It's coaching. We have to get, we have to keep working at coaches and not just on the tactical, technical stuff. We have to get coaches to work with the kids because the game is for the kids, not for the coaches. And I think we have to have a goal above just winning. Yeah, winning is important, and it's nice to win a championship, no question. But, you know, if you can develop people, I think we all talk about that in sport.